I did a sketch and I'm about to start painting it right now. Actually, let me show you the sketch. And it got me thinking about creation. I'm sorry for the noise in the background if you hear it, it's just cars. But it got me thinking about creation and God, because I'm taking inspiration from this plant, my dying flowers, and it got me thinking about us and our art forms, because we as people, we can do art and sit there and be like, okay, I made this, now it's done. I did this, the art piece looks great, now it's finished. And we have that sort of grace or liberty to declare when something is finished or not. And God does not. Because for God and us, we're alive and we're created by God. And you see that we are not the same people we were as babies. We're constantly evolving, constantly changing in such a way that there's this quote, and it goes like, day by day, it's like nothing has changed, but when you look back, everything has changed. So I'm just paraphrasing. That's kind of how the quote goes. And it got me seriously thinking how indeed day by day, it feels like nothing has changed. Day by day, it feels like nothing is changing, nothing is evolving. But so many things have happened over the last couple of years for all of us. COVID, I cannot begin to think that that was 6 years ago. But things are constantly evolving, constantly changing, and sometimes more drastically than other times, but changing nonetheless. And it got me thinking, well, about God. About He is constantly creating us every single day, our features, how they change when we hurt ourselves. He has to take that into consideration, that we've hurt ourselves. And I don't know if I'm making sense, but when, like in films, like if you're an animator, if you ever like know anything about animation, when something happens to, let's say, a character, then that part of their body has to continue on in the film, if that makes sense. Like if their hair gets cut, then they have to continue on in the film with their hair cut. Or if it grows, if it's over a series of years and it grew, then the animator has to take that in consideration, that all this happened. In the same way with God, that He has to take those things into consideration when, in a way, making us every single day. Like, we're not just done at the womb and that's it. But day by day by day by day, we're aging, we're growing, and so is nature. And He creates every single second, because there's every single second that we're constantly evolving and constantly changing our minds. So with His own paintbrush, He's constantly creating new lines and new features on our bodies. And I think that's so beautiful. And there's this other quote. I know so many quotes. And it goes like something along the lines of, every person is created beautifully, and the greatest tragedy is to be convinced otherwise. And to some degree, I truly believe that, because how is it that God, our creator, takes into consideration our being and our creation every single day, and then we're told that we're ugly, that we're not beautiful? It's just not true. Logically, it's just not true. It's not true that we're ugly. It's not. And our social standard for what is beautiful and what is deemed ugly is just that, a social standard, a social standing. And it varies between cultures and regions and peoples and just personal preferences. Of course, as a society, since we have technology now, it's much easier to spread a conceived perception of how somebody should appear, should look. But even that changes depending on the time period, depending on the decade, and even places that you are. Like, media isn't the same everywhere. It's different depending on what people want to be exposed to, depending on what the algorithm believes people should be exposed to. Of course, there's trends, but those, in a way, are fed by people and their interests. And of course, there's all these other things that play into that. But what I'm trying to say is it changes. But us as people and the way God creates us also changes day by day. And I think we as a society should be more focused on one thing than the other, and almost pay more attention and to one thing in comparison to the other. Because if God, our creator, deems it important for us to make a new kind of curve on our face or a new smile, like, I'm not the same person I was when I was 4 years old, and that's rational, that's reasonable, and that's obvious to us now. But I think we should pay more attention to that, how absolutely precious that is, how precious we are. And instead of trends, instead of our constant need and desire to fit into this sort of mold that we're given every single year, basically every single second, there's this new standard, new mold. You should look like this, you should be like this, fix this, and fix that. And it's not realistic. And God, in all his glory, does not have that sort of standard. He doesn't honor men's trends in a way that he's like, oh, okay, the trend of 2026 is you should be skinny, and therefore let me make all these people skinny. You know, like that sort of trend. Of course, we also tie into how our bodies, evolve and change with how we exercise or genetics, but God takes that into consideration as well, and I believe that, and I know that to be true. And we should also, in a way, take into consideration all that God has, done in our lives, and just life alone, being alive, knowing he's there, or at least him being there, and us, whether we know it or not, him being there anyways, molding us. And I think how devastating it must be for him to have, not to have, but to create people day and time again, give them new life, new breath, parts of you, and them to not care at all. And I think I don't know how God does it, because I see it as a bit of a toxic relationship to give to people who may never give back or care or deem him worthy enough to praise and to honor. But that's all defined by situations, and which I completely also understand. But the point I'm trying to make, and the purpose of this video is to take a moment to sit and to recognize how life changes, we change, nature changes, everything is constantly getting older, time is constantly moving, we're moving. Even if you sit still, there's thousands on millions of other people that are changing and evolving every single day. And God keeps up with every single one of our growth, our own growing. Every single plant, like this one that grew and is now beginning to fade away. And he knew it would fade away. And I think nature is and flowers is such a beautiful reminder that life comes, but that life also goes, and that God cares for it all. And we are growing, but eventually, like these flowers, we will go. And sometimes we go earlier than we're supposed to, based on other people's decisions, because humans, we're imperfect. That's kind of how it's always been. We're imperfect people since the fall. But God, in all his wonder, cares still, and is constantly allowing us, enabling us, and deeming us worthy enough to evolve. And I don't think getting older, I think as a society we deem sometimes older people as these like, oh, you know, they're just old people. But isn't that so beautiful that they've lived a life, and to see how God has transitioned them through the movement of time. And now they get to share their wisdom and share stories with us from time that we weren't around for. And sure, these flowers may have, I will outlive these flowers, God willing. And I was probably here, well, I was actually definitely here before these flowers were ever here. And I believe that every single living creation in a way has a conscious, and these flowers, how they were able to experience me, I was able to experience them. And I think that's also so beautiful, that every single living creature, human, even though a lot of people, because of technology and everything, we've kind of aren't as great at communicating as I think we used to be. We still get to, and that's the point I'm trying to make, we still get to enjoy the presence of each other. We still get to live around each other and adopt habits from each other and lose other ones that aren't so good, and learn. But all of that is done in this lovely cycle, a lovely continuation of evolution. And that is a gift. Evolution's a gift. And you see those that do not evolve, example, their maturity, we deem them as not so bright people because they didn't evolve. And so I know that evolution is beautiful, and that God, our creator, as he evolves us day by day in ways, physically, but also in a way spiritually, mentally, if we let him, gets to constantly, paint us, constantly gets to create us day by day. We get to sort of dictate to the extent of which he creates us, but isn't that wonderful that he does anyways, for those who care and those who do not, for those who neglect and those who do not. That's precious. Like here, this has already been 12 minutes of me talking, and I'm not done yet. I'll show you the finished product, but I'm not done yet. And it's now 13 minutes and I'm not done. But I get to do this, and I wonder if God sits down for hours on end and thinks to himself that, wow, I get to do this.